You can watch the best parts of this series at MedCircle.com. Tens of millions of people in the US are diagnosed with depression each year, yet it is tragically misunderstood, even by those who suffer from it. New York City-based psychiatrist Dr. Sue Varma is a leading expert on the condition, so MedCircle traveled to Manhattan to help you, the viewer, understand the condition, what causes it, how to cope with it, and much more. Welcome to MedCircle's Debunking Depression series. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Before we were rolling, I was saying, out of all of the series we've done, this is the one I have been most looking forward to, because when you hear mental health, you automatically think depression.
Yes.
It affects so many people. Why is that?
16 million Americans are affected by this, and it's about 7% of Americans, and that's just who's diagnosed. So just think about the number of people who are out there that actually never get diagnosed by a doctor, which is probably half, I would say. Depression is one of the most common illnesses around the world, period. It's a very expensive illness to have if it's not treated. We know that in the workforce, it costs about $200 billion per year in terms of people losing days, so absenteeism, presenteeism, which is a funny word, which is you're present but you're not productive, and then the medical costs that are involved. So it's considered by the World Health Organization as a major cause of disability. It's going to be in the top 2 pretty soon by 2020. So it's something really important. I love the fact that you guys are doing this. It is one of the most common mental illnesses, one of the least understood, I think. I think people think of, when they think of mental illness, they do think of depression, but they also think of scary people hearing voices, and that's not at all the case. This is the average person who's going to work, who has a family, somebody that you can relate to. It's your neighbor, it's your friend, it's your boss, it's your coworker, it's your kid, it's you, and you don't know it because you're like, but I can function. And I can't tell you how many people call me and say, I never thought in my life that I would see a psychiatrist. That's only for crazy people. But call me crazy, but we all got something, right? Absolutely. Everybody's got something. When you look at anxiety, depression, substance abuse, trauma, we've all got something.
When you mentioned that there's $200 billion lost each year because of depression, is that correct?
Yes.
The founder of MedCircle, Doug Colbeth, is a huge advocate about having workplaces that address mental health issues, don't attach it with a big stigma, and provide resources.
That's awesome.
If A, it's the right thing to do,
yeah.
And B, because you don't want to lose out
totally
on productivity with your employees.
Totally.
But people think depression is not worthy of that.
Yes.
If you got sick and got the flu,
yes,
then maybe you should call in, but
yes,
not because you have depression.
Yes. And in the last year there was this great tweet that went viral about a person asking their boss for a mental health day, and the boss saying, like, please take as many as you need.
Yeah.
And it was the first time that we were looking at this as an illness. And when I try to describe it to patients, so a big part of what I think that a job of a psychiatrist or mental health therapist should be is education, and normalizing, telling people that depression is an illness just like any other. And when people say, I feel so bad, I can't go to work, I can't meet the standards, they beat themselves up, and that is a symptom of depression. And I ask people, would you beat yourself up about having the flu? What do you mean? Well, okay, if you have 103-degree fever, you have chills, you have myalgias, you're shivering, you're having muscle aches and pains, you can't go to work, would you call out? Yeah, absolutely. Would you blame yourself? Not at all. What would you do? Get help. Why can't you think of depression in the same way? It is a mental flu, okay? So bear with me. A lot of people will say, what do you mean mental flu? This is a serious medical illness. And that's what I'm trying to do when I'm saying that. I'm trying to normalize it, and I'm trying to get people to think of it. You would not blame yourself. You would not blame somebody else. You would not say, oh, just get over the flu. What's wrong with you, buddy? Wake up. What's wrong with you? It's the same way. It's one of the common myths about depression is it is something that's self-induced. Oh, you're just choosing to be sad. Really? Who the hell chooses to be sad? I don't choose to be sad. It's something that happens to you, and we'll talk about a variety of reasons. But I want people to think of depression as a medical illness that just the way you would call out, just the way you would need help, just the way you would get a disability leave if you needed it. A lot of times people say, oh, I don't want people to abuse the system. I don't want to let them know that they have access or they have ability to get disability if they need it for depression. And I would tell you that 9 out of 10 times in my personal experience, people do not abuse the system. Most people that I work with I would say are highly functional, competent individuals who want to get better. And I would say that to be true of a lot of people. I don't think people are trying to cheat the system. So if you're a boss, if you run a team, I would say be compassionate. If somebody says, I need a day off, you are going to get their buy-in, you're going to get their loyalty, you're going to get them to stay at their company if you make them feel like you give a crap about them.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you want to stay in a place that...
Of course.
Yeah.
I ran a poll on my Instagram, okay? Not a scientific poll by any means, but I asked 2 questions. I said, have you ever suffered from depression? And I specifically used the word suffer for a reason. And then I polled the audience asking them, do you know somebody who has suffered from depression? I might get by a point or two these percentages wrong, but 94% of people said, yes, I have suffered from depression.
Wow.
And this was hundreds or maybe 1,000 or 2,000 people.
Wow.
98% said they knew somebody. So when you told me 16% who have been diagnosed, I'm sure that's a more accurate number, but I still thought there's probably so many more that are suffering in silence.
Yes.
Which is so scary.
Yes. You know, only about 1/3 of people who ever get diagnosed with depression ever end up getting treatment, right? So these are only the people who come and say that they have depression, or that somebody, a provider, is smart enough to say, I wonder if you're experiencing depression, right? And only 1/3 of those people. So we're talking about a subset of a subset. So, and if you add all things together, like we said, depression, anxiety, substance, trauma, like all of the mental illnesses combined, I would say easily like 60 to 70% of people will at some point in their life. And I know that that is, you know, short of shocking, but if you add everything together and how many people are not diagnosed, I would say it's a very large number.
Let's talk about you.
Yes.
Why should anybody listen to you when it comes to depression? Who are you?
Okay, so I'm a board certified psychiatrist. I've been in practice over 10 years. I trained at NYU Medical Center, Bellevue, which is one of the best hospitals. Bellevue was actually the first public hospital in the country, first maternity ward, a lot of history there. There's a great new show on NBC, you might have heard about it, New Amsterdam, that's based on it. And it was a wonderful place for training, and I had a lot of exposure to a variety of populations. So working in inpatient, outpatient, psychoanalytic training, psychodynamic training, CBT therapy, which is something I do in my practice. So as I mentioned, I'm board certified. I'm on faculty at NYU. I'm a clinical assistant professor, and I teach medical students how to interview patients, teaching them about the mental status exam, what to pick up, which is a big part of psychiatry, which is obviously there's the subjective part when you meet somebody, they're telling you how they feel, and then there's the objective part. How are they making eye contact? Are they moving a lot? You can tell a lot about a patient just by looking at them. So it's the physical exam, if you will, of psychiatry. I also teach some psychopharm courses. I am very actively involved in the American Psychiatric Association. It's one of the largest organizations, about 40,000 members worldwide. And I am a fellow of the American Psychiatric Organization, which is sort of an honor. And I'm on their public affairs committee. And I also do a lot of speaking and writing for the media. So, you know, I have experience.
So you don't do a lot of stuff.
No, I'm home most of the time, under the covers.
And you have a private practice.
And I have a private practice.
I mean, goodness gracious.
Yeah.
All right, so but why depression? You truly are an expert at that mental health genre.
Yes.
What is it that attracted you to that genre?
So I'm so fascinated by depression because I'm fascinated by happiness, right? And to me,
that is so great. Sometimes I interrupt when something just really hits me because I don't want people to miss what you just said. You said, I'm so fascinated by depression because you're so fascinated with happiness.
Yes.
So explain that.
So I think that we all have this amazing potential, right? To truly be joyful, to truly be content, and to truly be happy. And to me, depression is something that happens that tries to steal your joy away. But if you don't allow it to, it doesn't have to be that way, right? I think most of us are, even if we're not depressed clinically, we're probably somewhere in the middle, you know, living, functional, but are we optimal, right? So I don't look at, and I think traditionally psychiatry and medicine, Western allopathic medicine, looks at disease, right? It's looking at what's wrong with you. It's looking at the absence of health. Not that there's an on-off switch with health. It's not black and white. But people are looking at what's missing. I don't want to take you just from dysfunctional back to functional. When I with my clients in my practice, I want to take you from functional to optimal. Who are you truly meant to be? Like people say, well, I don't have any talent. No, screw that. I don't buy that at all. When people say, I'm not good at anything, Absolutely not. Everybody has some really, really beautiful raw talent. You could be the best chef in the world, maybe you play golf, maybe you garden, maybe you're a painter, whatever it is, but you're good at something, and really just unwrapping your gifts. And depression is something that gets in the way. Mental illness gets in the way. It's not who you are. I don't think it defines you. I think that people are so much more than their depression. And as a psychiatrist, I'm a big believer in positive psychiatry and positive psychology, which is looking at optimism. And these are some of our innate qualities: optimism, resilience, humor, flexibility, coping mechanisms. These are all things that we have. And I feel like depression, if you're able to sort of scratch that away, you see this really beautiful, shiny gem, like what you're meant to be, what your raw talents are. And everybody has something, and it's different. So depression is fascinating to me because I think if you can push that away, it's an entry point. Most people won't go out of their way and say, I'm going to find myself a happiness coach. But depression makes you look at something that's not working, and that's kind of getting in the way of you being fabulous. So it's a way that somebody comes in for treatment, and then the doctor's like, hey, by the way, did you notice you're also really good at all these other things? Have you ever thought about that? So I don't look at, I know that every practitioner has a different way of looking at things. I look at it as, okay, that's what got you in, and I know that you're only thinking about not being depressed. Let's get you not depressed, but also let's get you fabulous, because you are. And it's underneath it.
The title of your book should be "Depression is Getting in the Way of Making You Fabulous." Or something like that, because that's so good. But I love looking at depression as a key to happiness, because if we can solve it or tackle it, we can live our most optimal life.
Yes.
That's really hopeful. I love that message. What is not being discussed about depression that we should be discussing?
So much of Western medicine is about breaking things. So much about Western medicine is about fixing things when they're broken. But my question is, why do we wait that long, right? Why can't we talk about prevention? And I don't think that we in Western medicine focus enough on preventing depression. I don't think we talk enough about natural treatments. I don't think we talk enough about how to support people who have depression, and not blaming people. So I feel like if there are things that you can do to prevent depression in the first place, we are going to be saving the $200 billion that we've been talking about.
That's huge. I've never, out of all the mental health conversations I've had, I've never once heard about preventing. All about treating.
Yes.
I don't remember ever hearing about preventing depression.
Yes. And you know, one of the public health epidemics, crises that we're facing as a nation right now is loneliness. And we have people, the suicide rates have gone up 30% in 30 years, according to the CDC.
Wow.
And one of the reasons is because we live in a culture of self-reliance. We're not appreciating our hardwired nature, which is to help one another, to live in communities. When you have society that's changing, and we have technology, we have social media, we have all of these really wonderful inventions which are meant to make our lives easier, and for the most part they do. They're meant to connect us, and in some ways they can, but if understanding our fundamental nature, we are going to be causing more harm than good. And I think of depression is, yes, depression rates have increased. Maybe they've increased because we're simply detecting them. Maybe because we're more open about it. There's less stigma, there still is, but less so. So it's very possible that we're just detecting things that have always been there, but I also realize that we're not living in the communities with the same support system that we once used to, extended families. I really am a proponent of preventing depression in the first place. When you get the depression, how to fix it quickly. I'm a big believer in evidence-based treatments, understanding the role of medication, but also understanding that it is just one part of a very comprehensive treatment plan. And getting all of the other ducks in the row, so that if you decide, a lot of people decide, I don't see medication in my future, I don't want to be on it for 20 years, what else can I do? I want to help you get buoyant, right? So and we can talk about medication. I know I'm talking a lot, so you just...
I love it. This is the whole reason you're here, is to talk, so keep going.
Okay. So when people come into me, and they, a lot of times people know that I do therapy, so a big part of my practice is cognitive behavioral therapy, and using bits and pieces informed from sort of psychodynamic theory and interpersonal. So there's a variety of different techniques, but I would say sort of more cognitive behavioral, using some mindfulness. But people come in, they say, I like the fact that you're an MD. So you had asked me about what makes you special, and I would say that being a psychiatrist and being a physician is a very interesting training or expertise to have, because in medical school, we have to do internal medicine, neurology, surgery, OBGYN, your pediatrics, you're doing every rotation in all aspects of medicine. So when I see a person, I'm not just really thinking about your mental health, I'm thinking about your physical health, your medical health. I'm thinking very globally about your health in general. And having that medical background allows me to look at all the other things that could be causing depression. So there's a lot of medical, biological causes of depression. When somebody first comes to me, I do a very thorough, comprehensive evaluation, and I ask about your medical problems. And there's like a long list. I can, tell you 8 or 10 common medical problems that end up causing mental health problems. But having this sort of medical background allows me to see that yes, medication is one part of it, but like I said, it's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to mental health treatment and prevention than I think a typical prescription pad. And a lot of times psychiatrists, I've heard people will come in and they'll say, the person fell asleep on me, unfortunately, or I left with the prescription in 10 minutes, and that is so dangerous. Primary care doctors, I love them because most people will first get diagnosed or prescribed by a primary care doctor. The problem is the primary care doctor is also trying to assess your blood pressure, heart problems, diabetes, cholesterol, and they might have 30 seconds for your mental health. And what I tell people is be careful of these doorknob conversations. Doorknob conversations are like the doctor has gotten up, their hand is on the doorknob, they're about to leave, and you're like, oh, by the way, I want to kill myself. And you're like, wait, what? Right? So no, schedule a proper mental health visit, and if that's where you're going to go to, the primary care doctor. But I would love to talk to you about the problems about getting medication from a primary health doctor at some point.
Well, episode 6 is all about treatment.
Okay.
So we're going to go in depth there. This is so huge and so big because depression is a universal issue. If it hasn't affected you, you probably know somebody who has. But real quick, what would you want someone who suffers from depression to get out of this series?
Do something about it. It is absolutely very treatable. You may not feel like it. You might feel hopeless right now. Trust me, that is a symptom of depression. What you're thinking, it may not be reality, and often it's not. If you're feeling helpless and hopeless, that is your depression. Do not listen to it. If it tells you your life is not worth living, you're nobody, the world would be a better place without you, nobody needs you, do not buy into those voices in your head that are telling you that you're nobody and that you're nothing and that it's never going to get better. When people are depressed and they feel pessimistic, and the 3 P's of pessimism is taking things personally, thinking that bad things are pervasive, and thinking that they're permanent. It's all my fault, I'm never going to get better, my whole life sucks, everything about me sucks. So the 3 P's of pessimism, recognize that that's what you're experiencing. You are not alone, you're not isolated. 16 million people in America every year are diagnosed. It is a medical illness, and it is a treatable medical illness.
Yes. What about for the supporters of somebody with depression?
Don't give up on them. The worst thing you can do is say, I've done everything I can, because no, if they're still depressed, if you love this person, you probably haven't done everything that you can. At the same time, recognize that you also need to do some self-care for yourself. And there's a healthy balance between spending time with a depressed person and getting them help, and recognizing that at the end of the day, you're also human, right? So be careful of any codependent tendencies, which maybe I want to fix this person, and why aren't they getting better? And if they're not getting better, it's my fault. Don't blame yourself. Don't blame yourself for the depression. Spend time with them, don't avoid them, but also recognize that you're human. You might need a break from their company. Frequently, people, when they hang out with other people, do get depressed. And there's something called stress contagion. And look, we're human beings, right? So we empathy and love is a part of what we experience. So if you're depressed, I'm hanging out with you a lot. Yeah, I might feel depressed as a result, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to give up on you, right? That means that the best thing you can do is also connect a person to a mental health provider.
Yes.
Right? So don't give up. In summary, what supporters can do, I would say don't give up. Know that there's hope. You need to take care of yourself and sort of take breaks when needed and get them the help that they need.
Thanks for watching. Your next step is to go to MedCircle.com and finish watching this series. There you can also access other series and get actionable advice and simple explanations. Continue your mental health journey at MedCircle.com, and I'll see you there.